Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker Podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by editor of the Wolfpacker.com and fellow co-host Matt Carter. And today we are going to talk about NC State's 41-10 win over UConn in Week 4, the last dress rehearsal before NC State heads down to Clemson in Week 5. We're going to talk about what we saw from the game. Obviously, NC State blew out UConn as we expected. If you listened to our preview podcast earlier this week, you knew that this was the type of result that NC State was going to put together on Saturday. But we'll talk about what we took away from the game and maybe look ahead a little bit to the Clemson game, just based on the fact that the Tigers had a very entertaining game, possibly the game of the year, or not the game of the year, but game of the week against Wake Forest on the road. In the early slate yesterday. But before we get into all that good stuff, just some quick reminders for the listeners and viewers at home. Please remember that you can listen to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google Play. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Plus, you can always watch us on our YouTube channel, where you should subscribe to our YouTube channel, give this video a thumbs up, and drop a comment while you're at it. Last but not least, most importantly, sign up for the Wolfpacker.com. For just $1, you can get a year's worth of premium subscription to the Wolfpacker.com as part of the On3 network. All your greatest recruiting information, insider information, NC State athletics. You need to be a member of the Wolfpacker.com. So head over there, take advantage of the deal. Just $1, and you get a year's worth of premium subscription. All right, Matt, let's talk Wolfpack Huskies. I'll throw it out there to start. I'm going to be honest. Watch the first half of this game. Saw enough. So maybe you can help fill in on. You did bring me up to speed before the podcast that there was a fake field goal in the second half. That might have been the one thing that I missed from tuning out after the first half, but. Yeah, had to watch the game on my phone. It was on the ESPN app. 31-3 at half. 31-3 because they gave up that late field goal in the second quarter. I saw enough. I knew NC State was going to win the game. I knew how they were going to win the game. Saw what you wanted to see from Devin Leary and his receivers to get back into that rhythm. That was my main thing that I was looking for going into this game is, could NC State get some rhythm going in the passing game? I thought they did exactly that. And Matt, just did this game live up to expectations? Any surprises yesterday?
Not at all. I mean, these are tough games, and the anticipation level for this game wasn't necessarily really high. I mean, I probably was more interested in seeing what was going to go on with Texas A&M, Arkansas, for the implications for the college game day decision, which we'll obviously talk about a lot with college.
Or Texas Tech, Texas.
Yeah, Texas Tech, Texas. Yeah, actually, we're watching that before the NC State game. I won't mention his name. I didn't want to give away that it was a man on the NC State press beat, who is a bit of a Texas guy, and was kind of owning and pulling for Texas in that press box. And it was quite funny to watch him versus 40 other people watching the end of that game.
Everybody, most people were rooting for Texas Tech, I would assume.
Oh, yeah. Just upset and mixed in.
Underdog. Makes NC State look good.
Yeah, it makes NC State. You got to remember, a lot of people in the press, it's not just media. So just kind of peel back the curtain a little bit. You got people who keep the stats. You got the TV crews.
Yep.
You got game workers. So you got a lot of NC State employees hanging out in the press box before the game that kind of work the game. They keep the stats. They keep the operations, all of that stuff working smoothly. So obviously they want Texas Tech to win. But, look, this is not an knock on Connecticut. They are where they are as a program. They've been where they are for the last 5-6 years. They have some challenging years ahead of them. ultimately may have to make a hard decision about how invested are they going to be with being an independent football program in the football bowl subdivision, or once they pull basketball into the Big East, they really put football on an island, and it's going to be tough. I think Jim Moore is a good coaching hire for them, but he probably had one hand tied behind his back with what he inherited, and then had the other hand tied behind his back with all the injuries they suffered. They were without their top two running back, without their starting quarterback, without two of their better receivers. They had no chance against that NC State defense, and it was a fight for them to get a first down until NC State put in a really uh, deep into the depth chart version of the defense at the end of the game. Offensively, probably Connecticut's a little bit more credible on defense, but that's probably what you're most pleased about. Very clearly, NC State went in with a plan to work with the passing game, find some rhythm in the passing game, and I thought for maybe the first time this year we saw some rhythm passes, what I call them, those short 5-yard passes that you throw out to the sideline when the guy's playing off coverage and just taking what the defense gives you. Those are good passes to get in rhythm. They're not explosive, but they're good. Of course, the very first pass of the game was an explosive pass to Day Atomics for a 75-yard touchdown. But
I mean, pretty bummy defense, but yeah.
yeah, excellent job out there to react to the ball, come back to it, and thought they ran the ball well too. Even the backup, Michael Allen, got in the game in the second half.
Rushing leader.
Yeah,
rushing leader for the Pack.
Yeah, and led the team in rushing. So, to your point, you can't really take a whole lot away from this game. They did what a good team's supposed to do, which is destroy your Charleston Southerns and your Connecticut's of the world. They did what a good team's supposed to do against Texas Tech, win by 2 touchdowns against a team you're better, but also a respectable Power 5 team. They didn't do what they were supposed to do at East Carolina. So when you look at the non-conference in totality, called a break week 1, but since then, as I put in my column, handling business. They did what good teams are supposed to do. They handled business from week 2, 3, and 4. Wasn't perfect, but I think incrementally getting better each week. And they're set up. Now it's a huge step up in competition. You're getting into the national spotlight. You are one of these, if not the showcase game, and a good weekend of games. And so we'll see how they handle it this week. But I'm kind of of the mind with Connecticut. Yeah, did what you're supposed to do. Let's move on. Let's nice job working on the passing game, but let's move on and focus on the big one.
Well, I would be surprised if next week's game is as good as Clemson Wake Forest was, because that was a damn good game.
Yeah.
And you think about how NC State went to double overtime with Clemson last year. I don't know. I think whoever wins is going to find a way to get it done in regulation. In fact, I might have a little bit of a. I'm gonna save it for the preview pod, but I'd start the year off by saying that my hot take of the year is NC State's going to go down to Clemson and win. Doesn't mean I think they're going to run the table, but it does mean that I think NC State's better than Clemson. And yesterday didn't exactly change my mind. We can talk briefly about that game once we wrap up our analysis of NC State UConn. But I mean, my main takeaway, thank God Thayer Thomas led the receiving corps with 8 targets. I think he should do that every game. He's the most reliable receiving option on this team. You could make the argument that he, was one of those guys the last couple of years. Problem was he just had Emeka Emezi, who basically turned into a human vacuum whenever Devin Leary threw him the ball. So, you've had to replace that production. I feel like NC State's had some growing pains in the first few weeks here this season, replacing Emezi's production. It was an off-season conversation. How's this receiving corps gonna, fill that void? And I never really had too much worry about it because I thought there was just so much talent in the receiving room. But that chemistry really is important. Particularly when you're playing at game speed. I mean, it's great that Leary's throwing routes to all these guys countless times over the summer in practice and training camp, even outside of, organized training, but you can't mimic that game speed. And when you lose your favorite target, you really need to find another one. And I think Thayer Thomas should be that guy that he leans on this year. But, another guy that's going to be very important to the NC State passing game, Devin Carter. Nice to see him show up yesterday. Welcome to the show, Devin Carter. Look, anybody that's been watched NC State football the past 3 years knows that Devin Carter probably has the highest ceiling of any, of NC State starting receivers. When he's on, he's fantastic. But obviously, he's not the most consistent guy in the receiving room, at least not to this point. Would love to see him become that guy. But 5 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown yesterday, caught 5 of the 6 balls that went his way. That's the type of efficiency you want to see from Devin Carter. It's the type of efficiency you expect from a guy like Devin Carter, who certainly has a physical advantage of whatever UConn was throwing his way. Let's see if he can do it again with Clemson coming up next week, because if I'm not mistaken, Devin Carter had his game of the season last year when the Tigers showed up to Carter Finley. So maybe, opportune time for Devin Carter to get going in the passing game.
Yeah, I think you hit on two very, very good points. I think the Thayer Thomas targeting number is huge. I've been arguing for it. I think he needs to get about 10 targets a game. He's your go-to guy. I mean, maybe not the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, any of that, but he's a sure-handed, quick, good speed, tough, reliable receiver. And he's been doing it for a long time. I mean, I got to imagine at this point he kind of feels to other teams like remember Adam Humphrey, I think it was, at Clemson. It seemed like he was there for 13 years. I think he makes jokes about it on Twitter all the time.
Renfro was...
Renfro, that was what I was thinking of. I know.
Yeah, okay.
Renfro, yeah. People are like, is he still at Clemson? I think Thayer Thomas is getting close to that at NC State. That's if you're trying to get the passing game in rhythm, which is what I felt like is lacking, rhythm, Thayer Thomas is a good weapon to have. And so his targeting number was really good. And then to your point, Devin Carter, he's the guy you're hoping we're going to step up and be a guy who catches 50 to 60 passes for you this year and get 750 plus yards receiving and 5+ touchdowns. I mean, you're hoping that he will give you the numbers that Emeka Emeji gave you last year. And that wasn't out of the question, given Devin Carter's past production. And I for whatever reason, he had a very quiet first 3 games of the year. Now, maybe it may be the lack of a proven outside receiver on the other side, and he's getting a lot of focus and coverage from defenses. I don't know. I hadn't broken it down or talked about it. But this game here obviously was a major factor, and if that can happen consistently, which is the word you used very correctly, it's the consistency that we need to see that. Because look, we all watched, I assume most of us did, watch Wake Forest Clemson at noon yesterday in Winston-Salem. What was your main takeaway from Clemson's defense in that game? Clemson has a great defense, but we forget they lost some NFL corners. And they are short-handed with some injuries in that secondary now.
Yep.
Now, NC State receivers are not Wake Forest's receivers. And NC State's offense is not Wake Forest's offense. But their DBs for Clemson, up until the last play of the game, struggled yesterday. And they struggled the week before against Louisiana Tech. And so it's going to be important for Thayer Thomas and Devin Carter and Devin Leary and the whole passing attack to be on game next Saturday. And so to see that against Connecticut was a promising development. You can't, there's no transitive property, though, that's going to say, because they did this against Connecticut, they're going to do this against Clemson. We don't know. That's going to be an unknown until the game starts. But what you do know, if you couldn't throw it against Connecticut, you sure as hell aren't going to throw it against Clemson.
No, but the Clemson Wake Forest game, I thought, told me more about what to expect next week than NC State UConn.
Mm-hmm.
No question. It showed you that Clemson's defense is not perfect.
They're human.
I did have to chuckle a little bit there when you said NC State's offense is not Wake Forest's offense. That's the damn truth. I mean, can you imagine if NC State had Wake Forest's offense?
Yeah, and what I also meant by
They'd
that,
be the national title contender.
yeah, but I also was referring to the style of the offense is a very challenging,
Yes,
the slow mess,
yes.
and that's
The
where
mesh.
those true freshman corners for Clemson were having a hard time with the discipline of playing press coverage in a slow mess. It was not working very well.
Yeah. I mean, there was one mesh where I almost got a 5-second count. I mean, it seemed like Hartman was just
Yeah.
standing there for a good 5 seconds before he decided to hand the ball off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, look, two teams on NC State's schedule. Wake Forest is going to have to come to Carter Finley later on this season. I honestly think NC State matches up better against Clemson than it does against Wake Forest, because I think Wake Forest offense is so good that it's going to put up points on any defense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Wake Forest's offense is the best in the league and probably a top 10 unit in the country. And, I think NC State's going to they're going to prefer to kind of get in the mud with Clemson more than they want a shootout against Wake. I think watching Clemson Wake Forest, first of all, if you're an NC State fan, you're glad that Clemson comes away with that win in a double overtime game. It was really the perfect outcome. You play a game that's, over 60 minutes of regulation. You kind of wear yourself out. You win a close one. So it shows that Clemson's not, they're not coming into this game with the confidence of going to a ranked Wake Forest team and winning by 28.
Right.
But they're also not coming in with the chip on their shoulder like they just, lost their first game of the year. And now they've got to be perfect the rest of the way for a chance at the college football playoff. So, scenario-wise, it's perfect for NC State. It did scare me a little bit to see how good DJ Uiagalelei looked. He looked like the guy that went up to South Bend and almost knocked off the Fighting Irish when Trevor Lawrence had COVID a couple seasons ago and had to miss that game. He didn't look anything like the guy that we saw last year, who really struggled and was one of the worst statistical quarterbacks in the ACC. Now, part of that is it's Wake Forest, so their offense is great. Their defense could use help, although Wake Forest is better defensively probably than they were last year. It's really more of a Jimmy's and Joe's problem than necessarily scheme.
Yeah. They're to your point. They're not good on defense, and that's going to be what keeps Wake Forest from being an elite team. They're a top 25 team because of that offense with those receivers and Sam Hartman and the running backs and the experienced offensive line. They will not be a top 10 team because of that defense, which was not good last year and lost some key players off of that defense. Against good teams, you're going to see a lot of games for Wake Forest, including NC State. You can go ahead and call it. It's going to be a close game. You're going to have a lot of games like Liberty and Clemson. They're going to be in it, but so is the other team, right? And so it's going to come down to who executes in the fourth quarter, et cetera, et cetera. I agree wholeheartedly with
put them up.
Yeah, I agree.
For those that weren't watching,
with the take of this was probably the ideal outcome for NC State. That was a physical game. I saw a couple of Clemson guys, need some attention from the trainers,
including Will Shipley.
Yeah, and a lot of them came back, but those are the little bruises that add up over the year, and maybe slow you down just a half a step. And then for NC State, you wanted to come out of that game against Connecticut healthy. They had a few scares. We talked about the fake field goal. Probably not the brightest idea. One you might want to have back to see Chris Dunn get hit that hard.
Which, if you're UConn, you're gonna hit the kicker like that. If the other team is running it up on you and he's going for a fake field goal in the second half.
Yeah, and so Dolan said that he's fine. I think he joked. He's joking. Chris Dunn hasn't been tackled like that in a while, which is probably true, probably ever. But
right.
And to Colin Smith, very impressive 40-yard field goal he made. Missed the 47-yarder, but that had the distance. Just was wide left. So I think we got a preview of who's probably going to be kicking field goals next year for NC State. But Grant Gibson had the wind knocked out of him. But he appeared to be fine on the sideline. Jordan Houston will be back next week, Dave Doran said. Demi Sumo Conbay left the game after a handful of Ks. Doran thought he was fine. I think he even mentioned, look at the game with a different set of circumstances. He might have been able to come back into that game.
Mm-hmm. What about, did you mention Jordan Houston already?
Yeah, Jordan Houston will be back. Tyler Baker Williams is probably the one where there's no definitiveness. It looked like he was on crutches. Yeah, it looked like he was on crutches before the game. And Doran just reiterated he's day-to-day after the game. One of the things that impressed me about Clemson, DJ did definitely look a ton better. When you go back and look at last year, he started the year against that Georgia defense. I mean, in hindsight, probably not the best starting assignment for a guy to begin the season replacing Trevor Lawrence on a full-time basis. Without what gets lost last year, they really didn't have a great receiving core last year.
Nope.
Them out. And so I think it was kind of a double whammy. And then like week 4, he's playing the NC State defense. So he starts the year with 2 of like his first 4 games against 2 top 10, 15 defenses in the country without an established receiving core. And you saw the loss of confidence start to become a factor. Those receivers for Clemson were making catches against Wake Forest. They made some big, and the tight end, they made some big catches, contact catches, competitive catches that they probably didn't make a year ago. And that also helps out DJ a lot. So, but I agree.
DJ wasn't really ever under pressure.
Yeah.
And that's to be expected in a Wake Forest Clemson matchup. Clemson's always going to have the physical upper hand against the Demon Deacons. Don't expect that to be the case next Saturday. I think the Wolfpack are going to put a little bit more pressure on DJ than the Deeks were able to. If not by push at the line of scrimmage, simply by scheme, because Tony Gibson's going to dial up those blitzes. So.
So it can be a lot of fun. I tell you what, I think this preview podcast is going to be released on Thursday. Will be one of the most anticipatory preview podcasts we do, because we're already talking a lot about it. With all due respect to Connecticut, hopefully for their sake they get some guys back, and maybe we'll have a little bit more anticipation for that game next year when they travel to Connecticut. I think it's in week 3. I know they start with Marshall at home and then maybe VMI at home, and then they go to Connecticut. So we'll see how that game, how they are looking at that point. But
as MJ Morris, goes into, nice 3-0 start there potentially.
We'll see. And that's going to be a big topic of conversation, won't it? So,
and hey, great reason why you should join the Wolfpacker.com for just $1.
Yeah.
Year's worth of premium subscription. That'll take you through this point next year. So, look, don't be short-sighted. This is the season we're in now, but after this, there's going to be some decisions to make going into next year. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Who's going to replace all these guys going to the NFL?
Yeah.
Matt Carter's going to have the lowdown for you.
Real quick before we do game balls, I want to ask your thoughts about this. I was doing the podcast, looked it up. 7.5 points, Clemson favorite.
Okay.
What's your thoughts?
I would hammer the Wolfpack.
Yeah.
Confident in NC State to cover that, to cover 7.5. What's the over under?
I didn't see that.
I think it's worth a look. Although the over under is probably going to be a trappy type.
Yeah, the only thing
because everyone's going to want to take the under.
Probably.
But it was good for Clemson to put some offensive tape out there. So that maybe the under's not so we don't get an over under total of like 45. I don't know. I'm logging in right now. Sorry for the pause for the listeners, but
while you do that, I'm gonna go ahead and give out my game ball while you do that.
Go ahead.
I'm going to give it to Devin Carter. I thought he really needed a game like this. The play he had where he bounced, I thought he scored on that play where he bounced off the Connecticut defender, and then you saw his athletic capabilities where he had the speed to get around several defenders, turn the corner, and win the race upfield. That's athletic to go with his size. And then on the next play to win a jump ball, I like how they went right back to him so he could get his touchdown on that next play. So they need that Devin Carter. That's very important. And it showed up. So, now you want to see that on a weekly basis in the ACC because the next 3 games are unbelievably big now. I mean, if Florida State beats Wake Forest next week, NC State will have played 3 undefeated ACC teams in a row. So, because Syracuse will be undefeated by that time. They play Wagner next week to go to 5-0, and then they get a bye right before NC State.
And Florida State will also be undefeated?
Well, Florida State plays Wake Forest Saturday.
So they probably won't be undefeated.
Well, they're favored. They opened up a slight.
It's a good game.
It's a good game. In Tallahassee. We'll see how Wake Forest handles. Clemson has a habit of turning a loss into several losses for teams that play them. So,
isn't it fitting that the last year of ACC division seems to be probably? I mean, this is
the widest.
This is as lopsided as I can ever remember it. I'd pick Florida State to win the Coastal right now. Yeah, I think there's 4 teams in the Atlantic that would win the Coastal.
If I put 5, I put Syracuse pretty high up there too right now.
I think you're a little high on. I've watched Syracuse in all of these games. It's painful. They win, but it's painful.
But who's Coastal that's not painful?
Pittsburgh when they're on, I feel like is You bring a good point up, but I don't know. I think Carolina got mollywopped by Notre Dame at home yesterday in a big game for them.
They got the offense in Chapel Hill, but it's never good when a team can literally, they're going to run the football, and they're still getting 6-7 yards a run on first down. They're going to run it on first down, and they're still getting 6 or 7 yards. Which leads me to say that we can stop saying this UNC defense is talented. It's a little side rant for me. I hear it all the time. No, talent is not the issue. Yeah, it is. They're getting their butt whipped on the line of scrimmage. That's a talent.
Well, it's a classic case of be careful what you wish for at Carolina.
Yeah.
Because, you got your recruiter, but then that recruiter also has to coach. And, man, you know what? I think, look, I don't know how good this offense is going to be this year, but I can tell you Devin Leary is going to throw for 300 yards plus in Kenan Stadium against the Tar Heels. So
you got
I'd take that bet right now. By the way, I did find the total 43.5, even lower than the low prediction that I thought. So
I kind of go with over on that.
My initial lean is definitely over. I mean, if you look at I know NC State by far going to be the toughest defense that Clemson has faced thus far, but you look at Clemson's point totals this year, they haven't scored fewer than 35 points yet.
The highest 4 games total to start the season under Dabo's winning. Again, some of that is a product of how the schedule lined up versus probably how it lined up in years past. But last year with the lowest 4-game total under Davis winning. Again, partially
Well,
because of the fact that they played
when
two.
you open up with Georgia.
Yeah, and NC State.
Shout out.
So they had two really good defenses in that first four stretch, and I'm not sure if they played a good defense yet. So who gets your game ball?
Well, I was gonna give it to Devin Carter. I'll give it to Thayer Thomas. Yeah, I'll give it to Thayer Thomas. Or whoever decided that Thayer Thomas is going to get 8 targets in this game. That's who gets my game ball, not Thayer Thomas, but whoever. If it's Leary, just making his reads. If it's Tim Beck saying we are going to get Thayer Thomas the ball. I don't know who made that decision this week. I just want to see more of it. Give Thayer Thomas the rock because A, he's going to catch it, and B, he's going to be able to do something with it. So, yeah, I mean, he's like a college version of Julian Edelman. I mean, this man is going to go play for the Patriots, and he's going to go have a 5 or 6, 7 plus year career in the NFL playing for Bill Belichick, running slants on 3rd and 4 and being that guy. So use him while you got him. Yeah, that's who gets my game ball. But Thayer Thomas too. I mean, that was solid game, good game. Obviously, the first one broke for him, but he made all the right moves. But my runner up would be Michael Allen. Good to see the young buck go in and eat in the second half. Even though I'm just watching the highlights there, I did not watch the second half live, but I will be fully dialed in next Saturday, and we're gonna have a good preview pod coming up this week. Maybe have to find a way to get Ethan on the pod for that conversation. So, nice little tease there. Everybody get ready for the Clemson week ahead. That's going to do it for this podcast. Unless you got anything else to add, Matt.
Nope. I'm going to go take a run in the beautiful fall weather here in North Carolina. High temperature yesterday, I think was 73, 74.
I've seen on Twitter that it's sweatshirt and short season.
Yeah. Now, I don't do that myself. I do that myself. And I think people would thank me for not doing that. But
well, maybe you'll start with those new, muscular legs of yours, all this running you've been doing.
Now, I come from the Larry David school of thought about you should remember there was an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. No shorts on an airplane. No man should wear shorts. You shouldn't sit next to a guy wearing shorts in an airplane.
I 100% agree, and I also think that's our cue to wrap this up. So, last reminders, wherever you listen to pods, we're there, Apple, Spotify, Google Play. You can also watch us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment while you're at it. All of those things help us. So if you want to help us, you like what we do, you haven't done any of those things already, please go do them. Also, we're on social media. You can follow our main account at the Wolfpacker on Twitter. You can follow me personally at Justin H. Will on Twitter, and give us a like on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack on thewolfpacker.com. Last but not least, take advantage of that special deal. For just $1, you get a year's worth of premium subscription to the wolfpacker.com as part of the On3 network. All of your insider information as it relates to NC State athletics. Matt Carter is the guy that you need to be reading. You want to. For $1, you can basically have access to his brain for a year, and that's a very valuable brain to have access to in terms of NC State intel and information. So,
don't forget Ethan.
Year.
Ethan doing a great job with the recruiting.
I'm not trying to skimp on Ethan. He's the young buck. In fact, he's out there hustling, man. He might be coming for your crown in the recruiting.
He's already taken it.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. So yeah, you also want to. I mean, hey, shout out Ethan. He's gotten plenty of shouts out. We got to get him on the pod this week. Yeah. I mean, he's just phenomenal when it comes to the recruiting beat. So 2 great reasons why you should spend your $1 for a year. I'm not a reason. You get this for free. So, take that for what it's worth. Okay, wrapping up. So for Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.